Hi, welcome. It's been a while since I've made a video. Been quite busy doing other things. However, this video is going to be deep. Nikolai Machiavelli once said that in regards to the public, when they look at a prince, many people see, but few feel. And unfortunately, the medium which we're on caters for those who just see and not for those who want depth. This is not clickbait. I'm hoping that this is going to be relatively deep. And if you are a thinking person, critical thinking, open-minded, you might want to watch this. Now, before I begin, this is a bit about the nation, speaking about the march which is coming up soon, that is United Kingdom, and how I see Britain going forward. There's going to be a little bit of a Jackanory, and I'm continuing with my cigar sessions. Okay, so before I start getting in depth, I'm going to give not a disclaimer, but notice. Those of you who see me can make judgments. My background, my heritage is Jamaican and Yoruba. Yoruba, you might say? Yoruba is a nation within Nigeria. I say a nation, not a tribe, because there are 30 million Yoruba in the world and in Nigeria. That is 6 times more than Irish people or Scottish people. Okay? However, I was born, bred and raised in Britain. And essentially, I see myself as British. More surprisingly, English rather than British, because British is a catch-all type word. I think myself as a Londoner, and that came when I was in the army, and I saw people from all over the country, from Wales, from the West Country, Geordie, Scousers, all over. And I realised all the different regions. I felt like a Londoner back in the day when London was London. Okay? I think in the culture which I was born in. And when I'm thinking in the accent in which I speak. When I visited Jamaica, they go, oh, Englishman, Englishman. If I go to Africa, Nigeria, or Ghana, they tell me, oh, Englishman, British man. That's the way I'm viewed outside my country. So only in my country am I not viewed in that way. And that in and of itself is one of the challenges that people like me in this country have to go through. Now, interestingly enough, I have a grandchild. My grandchild would be in America known as passing when she grows up. People won't ask her whether or not she's English. They would just view her and see her as English. As they say in German, es kommt nicht in Frage, i.e., it is out of the question about whether they would even ask that. And that is the same for people who are Polish or Eastern European or on the continent. Caucasian people who migrate to the UK. Within about a generation or two, they're just completely and absolutely absorbed. Yep. And no one questions their ethnicity. Yep. It's only obviously if you're of colour that becomes the case. As the old lady said, where you from? No, where you really from? So yeah, my roots are in Africa. A little bit sooner than most of your roots are, but we all stem from that continent. That little issue and lecture is over because we're going to get into context in a moment. All right. So what I'm trying to say is this ethno-nationalism I have no truck with at all. I understand and I recognize that there's people who've been in the country for generations upon generations upon generations, and that's good. But graphics and demographics have changed over the years rapidly. And because of Britain's past, yeah, those demographics are more integrated, if you like. You're going to get people from different countries and cultures coming into this country. So there's been a lot of stuff and talk about, multiculturalism, it's rubbish, it's da da da. Multiculturalism, in my opinion, is fine. However, what is required is integration. Yep, integration. Not like some poison virus in the corpus, but integration within the country and the culture. Doesn't mean to say, but you have to reject heritage, okay? But integration. That is the key, and that is the problem which we face, in my opinion, in regards to when you see newcomers, Johnny come latelys or Johnny foreigner, who come into the country and don't want to integrate. That is the biggest problem I see within the country which we're in. Now, I like to do random purchases of books and I like history, and we're going to do a little bit of Jackanory. All right. I bought a book by Lawrence James. It's called The Rise and Fall of the British Empire. Now, I recommend to read it. I read a lot of books on empire, and Lawrence James's book is pretty good. I do like it, and it goes into a lot of depth. Many people talk about the British Empire, but don't really know much about it. They've heard one or two stories about the British Empire, and from that they've gone on a wild tangent. But as I said to you at the beginning, many people see, but few feel. So I'm going to read a passage, just one page from the book, The Rise and Fall of the British Empire. Then I'm going to talk about it. Then I'm going to give my view on it. And then I'm going to talk about the United Kingdom. So, in the book, chapter 3, the title is The Mission of Our Race, Britain and the New Imperialism, 1880 to 1902. Now, this part really struck me because it goes to the heart, in my opinion, as to what has gone awry and amiss within the country. So, when I read this out, we have to remember the time in which it was written and how it was written. I begin. It was essential that the Anglo-Saxon race should understand the qualities that it needed to foster if it was to fulfill its historic destiny. Most importantly, the young had to be given models on how Anglo-Saxon should behave and which of his innate virtues he should cultivate and how. A generation of university teachers, schoolmasters, clergymen, poets, journalists, and boys' fiction writers concentrated their minds and energies on polarizing the cult of the new imperialism. At its heart lay the concept of Anglo-Saxon manhood, an abstraction compounded in equal parts of patriotism, physical toughness, skill at team games, a sense of fair play, sometimes called sportsmanship, self-discipline, selflessness, bravery, and daring. The ground had been well prepared for the apostles of the Anglo-Saxon ideal. Since 1840s, the public schools had undergone a revolution started by Dr. Thomas Arnold of Rugby, which transformed the habits of mind of the middle and upper middle classes. Arnold and his acolytes sought to instill Christian altruism into their pupils and direct their ambition and aggression towards playing the field. The public schoolboy, educated according to Arnoldian code, also learned how to control himself and control others through the prefectural system, a perfect preparation for ruling and chastising the empire's lesser breeds. Intelligence mattered less than the acquisition of character, and intellectual activity was largely restricted to obtuse and repetitive exercises in the languages of two former imperial powers, Greece and Rome. The end product was a Christian gentleman with a stunted imagination, who played by the rules and whose highest aim was to serve others. If he had to earn his living, he elected to become an army or navy officer, a senior civil servant, a clergyman, a barrister, or joined a branch of the Indian or colonial administration. By 1880, a generation had passed into manhood with an outlook which made them ideally suited to govern the empire and fight its wars. Incidentally, the late Victorian public schoolboy shunned trade and industry, even if one had been the occupation of his father. Both activities were consequently starved of talent, which has been seen as one of the causes of the paralysis which was spreading through Britain or British manufacturing and commerce during this period. So, having read that, the question is, who is setting the tone for the character of our country today? What is the tone which is being taught in the universities, in our schools, in our civil service, even in our law enforcement? How did it get this way? Okay, everyone's talking about immigration at the moment, and by immigration, I mean a lot of time the illegal immigration and also the Islamification of the country. And to me, that is a massive, massive danger. I wouldn't mind if a load of Russians came over on boats demanding asylum and then try to change the culture into, I don't know, Russian ballet or whatever. Yeah, but at this moment in time, it is Britain is beyond recognition, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Yes, the algorithm often points me in certain places, this and that, and I hear what's going on in the country, but with my own eyes and ears, you see it every day. When I was learning German and I went to Germany, the easiest way to learn the language was to eavesdrop on people and listen to what they say and how they pronounce things. Can't do that in London. If you were a foreigner, you couldn't speak English, you came to London to do the eavesdropping, you'd probably end up talking Urdu. Yeah, there's so many different languages which are being spoken during the day, all the time. Yeah, especially when you're on public transport, it's really annoying, to be honest. Uh, People on their phones, speakerphone, have no idea what they're talking about. It's uncomfortable, frankly. I went to Ilford not so long ago. That's where I grew up, near that area. It was unrecognizable, unrecognizable, just like in East Ham, and then of course the Tower Hamlets, etc. Yeah, You notice that people are making such a big thing about Eid and Ramadan. It wouldn't surprise me if soon that they make public holidays, bank holidays, for these particular festivals. Yeah, this is not what this country's about, in all honesty. And the pushback, what's going on, obviously the two-tier policing and stuff like that. I'm not even talking about things like rape gangs and stuff like that. You know, government making announcements that they're going to give 500 million to the French. What did they do with the other 800 million about stopping the so-called boats coming in? What is it they've done with it? What is it that a company of commandos couldn't do with a bunch of box of Stanley knives slashing the boats before they even leave the French shores? Yeah? I'm going to talk about the United Kingdom and the march which is coming. I've been on, actually, fun enough, two of the gatherings, I wouldn't say marches, gatherings. And unfortunately, sometimes when I've gone on there, sometimes there's so many people there, you can't hear. And then it's like you have a screen and playing some sort of video. That's not what people have actually come to meet and greet on those marches, quite frankly. They haven't come to watch the latest video of what Tommy Robinson has done. Lots of respect for Tommy Robinson and stuff like that. But you've got a lot of people there, and they've come and they want to hear. And a lot of the times they just want to have reassurance. I think that's the word, really. A reassurance that the decline within the country is going to stop. Now, I have said in the past that Napoleon said that an army is a crowd that obeys orders. You have a lot of veterans who actually attend those marches. And I think, really, almost what there needs to be is a display of the veterans in showing solidarity. So you have proper drums, military type drums, drumming to a beat with people who know how to march with discipline. I think that's the main word, really, in regards to these gatherings. The marches themselves, it's good that they've been peaceful, but what is needed within the marches and the gatherings is a display of discipline. In Spike Lee's film Malcolm X, there is a scene where the police arrested some youth and put him in the cells. And oddly enough, the Nation of Islam in America, all dressed very smartly, march up outside the police station and demand the release. Not as a rabble, but in a proper, disciplined fashion. That's what's lacking on these marches. You need to have like people there marching to the sound of a drum and a trumpet. That's what a drum and a trumpet is there for. Yeah, it's to organize and formate that crowd as one unified body. That needs to be displayed. It was said that the Islamists were in Trafalgar Square with this Ramadan type thing as a display of force, kneeling down and praying. Well, perhaps on these marches there needs to be a proper display of force, not just waving a flag. Imagine if you had row upon row of maybe ex-servicemen in formation marching to the sound of a drum, yeah, showing discipline. Imagine the effect that would have. Imagine the optics. No violence, no trouble. A disciplined force. That's something to be reckoned with. I used to go to the Army and Navy rugby quite a lot. It's around this time of the year. And often, and it's great raucous situation and everyone's getting absolutely wasted. And I often thought to myself, what would happen in Twickenham if it kicked off? It never does. It never does. But you've got all the different rival units there. Commandos, infantry, logistic corps, paras, navy, all there, pissed out of their minds, having a good time. But if it was to kick off, it wouldn't work. Why would that be? Because the state forces would be encountering another force which also knows how to act in a disciplined way. And it wouldn't be acting like a rabble, it would be disciplined. And that is what is required. You need proper drums, proper trumpets in a disciplined fashion. When you show that you can organize yourself in a disciplined body, people start taking notice. Proper notice. This country is going down. Let me tell you now, it's going right down. In the schools, it's going down. Yeah. As I said, there's certain elements, yeah, denigration on the family, denigration of the flag, that you're supposed to feel ashamed of your own nation's flag. Denigration of folk. Yeah, the demonization of working class, white working class even. Chavs and this and that. Yeah. And then feminism. Yeah. Feminism going along trying to make that men are the demons. And an attack on faith, Christianity within the country. Yeah. There needs to be a pushback on that. And the way you're going to get a pushback on that is through discipline, proper discipline. Yeah. I don't think there will be like a civil war in this country. It could be some type of sectarianism, and we're seeing it at the moment with the attack on, the rise in anti-Semitism. Yeah, and how people are very casual about it, talking about it. You know, those marches which are going on, waving a Palestinian flag week after week, and people have just been idly by saying, "Oh yeah, a bit annoyed about." No, there needs to be a disciplined show of force to say, "No, we don't like that." Likewise, British humour. British humour needs to be deployed to be able to commentate and critique what we're seeing in regards to Islamification of this country. It's got to be more vocal. It's got to be a sense of ridicule, if you like, about the elements of Islam which are not favourable to the country. This concept about the chap in, is it Batley, who's in hiding at the moment. There should be more cartoons about the so-called Prophet Muhammad, just like there would be about Jesus. Yeah, the life of Ahmed, so the life of Brian. Yeah, it needs more of it to push the boundaries to say, look, this is what this country is about. This is what this country is about. At the moment, it's like a blackout. You don't see about it. You don't see even posters on the wall. Cartoons of Muhammad, for example. Why not? Why is that not? Why? Well, you'll see things about Jesus and Christianity. It's like fair game. But for some reason, within our nation, they're not thinking outside the box. the use of the internet is fantastic, and it gets scary for the mainstream media because it is lethal. There are people getting views. Tootsie TV, even Paul Thorpe, Paz, can't remember the letters, whatever, some of the other content creators. Very, very good. Need to ramp it up. What they need to do, quite frankly, is to turn themselves into little companies, sell some, well, raise money. Can't say the word, but to raise money to get themselves even more expansion in terms of their message across as a pushback to the so-called mainstream media. I watched the development of Tootsie TV and I'm really, really impressed about how it's come on. Is it Dan Wootton, whatever? Also quite good. Great, great stuff. Needs to be better coordination. Now, someone might say, "Oh, who's this black guy? He's far right." I'm not far right. I don't like Nigel Farage. I feel Farage is a grifter. A lot of MPs have caused controversy because they walked across the floor and joined another party. Nigel Farage creates his own parties and then leaves them. UKIP left it. Brexit left it. Reform, who knows? I'm not a great fan of Rupert Lowe, to be honest. But that said, he's the strongest of all of them, to be honest, in regards to what would be good for the country on certain elements. I don't know what his economic policies are, to be honest. A bit too right for me. But in regards to immigration, I think he's got it on the button. On the button. Yeah. Kemi Badenoch, Conservatives, they're tainted. She was given a poison chalice. Conservatives were a part of funding and facilitating dismantling of this country. And unfortunately, yeah, they've got an uphill struggle to try and regain any sort of credibility. The easiest way for them to do that, quite frankly, is to really show that they're aligned with the people. And that would mean talking with Tommy Robinson. We've already seen this sort of like cozy relationship between the Green Party and Islamic fundamentalism. And it's a danger. It's a Trojan horse. Green Party gone beyond environmental issues. Yeah. Literally like a bunch of Marxists. It's time to be active, not passive. And that activity requires discipline. That's what's lacking in terms of all across the floor. Most of the people who would like to vote for, say, reform or restore, they are the old Labour voters, quite frankly. They're the Labour voters or the old loads of money class, the ones who were Thatcher's children. Yeah, that's it, really. That's my message. You need better discipline in that march. Coordination. Utilize the veterans. They're there. They're waiting. Now, people know that there was something going on in the, is it Callaghan? Or was it Wilson? I can't remember. In the late 70s, where the military weren't very happy about how things were going. I think David Sterling was behind it. Yeah. We see at the moment with the SAS, we're not very happy about things. There's difficulty in regards to recruitment into the armed forces. I have a solution to the lack of recruitment in the armed forces. And I have a solution to the wave of immigration and fighting age men. It's very, very simple, really. You form the British Foreign Legion. Yeah, the British Foreign Legion, whereby anyone who comes to this country, any male that comes to this country, must be enrolled in the British Foreign Legion military and must do a minimum of 5 years service under military conditions. And if you fail, the recruitment, the selection, and passing out, then you're deported. Boom, out. Yeah, you do your 5 years in the British Legion, sorry, British French, wrong, the British Foreign Legion, should I say. You do your 5 years in the British Foreign Legion, and then you get your citizenship once you serve for the country. If you can't serve for this country, what the heck are you doing here? Because if you were some coward who couldn't take arms against a sea of troubles and sort your own countries out, why in hell's bells should we look after you? Yeah? This country is the way this country is because people were prepared to fight for the country. That's why. Yeah? In the Second World War, and I was against Britain joining the Second World War, quite frankly. But there were countries which didn't really fight against the oppressor, and they were taken over. And it was only Britain who stood alone and decided to do something. Could have easily surrendered. That's the whole reason why Rudolf Hess flew over in 1940 to negotiate sort of like surrender terms or truce with Britain, and it all went Pete-tong. Yeah, but Britain stood alone. On that point alone, from a moral point of view, yeah, it showed its strength. Yeah, if it kicked off, there wouldn't be British refugees. They would be fighting to restore the country to how it is. So you have the British Foreign Legion. Two birds in one stone. With one stone. You sort out illegal immigration, you sort out the mass immigration, and at the same time, you get your military strength up. And also, the double bubble, triple bubble, yeah, you have a legion of men who are acclimatized to British values and sense of service and duty. It's so simple. I mean, it's so simple. That's it. That's it. Over and out.